Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Live from the shores of Leschi, Daniel Bellis, Juan, Cotto, and Mick Hoffman touching bases with you on your community radio station, Rainier Avenue Radio. World. Mick Hoffman, the Seattle Seahawks are going to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, pretty amazing, isn't it? What a week.
Boy, it just really speaks to the fact what brings a community together better than sports. I had the incredible fortune of that was the fifth championship game dating back to 1983. Yeah, the 1983 AFC. You were probably too young to remember that when the Seahawks played the Raiders. Then the Seahawks took on the Carolina Panthers, and then obviously the games about a decade ago against the San Francisco 49ers and the Green Bay Packers. So this is our fifth championship game that we've hosted in Seattle. First one, biggest sports fan as I am, is the first one that I was able to attend. And boy, those are a lot of fun, Mick. I mean, the games are incredible. It is so incredible to be there live. But to also spill out of the stadium, stayed there. I stayed in the stadium for an hour after the game, then went out to the streets and the area around Pioneer Square, downtown Seattle. It was a party going on out there, as the Commodores used to say.
Yeah, pretty amazing when you're in a unified community, how much fun everybody gets to have. So, yeah, it's awesome. I think, the great organization, they do things the right way. Mariners, Seahawks, let's go. When the Sonics coming back? Just
out of curiosity, I mean, is it district by district, school by school? Let's say the Seattle Seahawks, and they are the prohibited favorites starting off. However, let's say the NFL script writers actually make the Seattle Seahawks the victors. Do kids that want to participate in the parade and all that kind of stuff, is that done school by school, district by district? How does that work? Or you just do like we did, just skip?
Yeah, I'm sure there'll be a lot of sick notes. It's each district has their own policy, so we'll see what happens. But I'm sure there'll be plenty of people downtown celebrating that one if it happens.
There will be a unique opportunity, I am sure, and I certainly remember the Super Bowl parade from 2013, and then obviously remember driving home after the game, after the 2014 season, 2015 Super Bowl, and it felt like driving home from a funeral. Very, very sad evening that night. So hopefully that will be different. Looking forward to today's show. We're going to talk about the invisible work of the athletic administration and the actual day-to-day functions and operations. Mick, tonight I'm going to Edmonds Woodway, one of my longtime friends, a member of one of the big political campaigns I worked on. His daughter is graduating. She's been a player at Edmonds Woodway for all 4 years, and she's having her senior night tonight. So I'm going to go be there with Tom and everybody, looking forward to this. And I know even on these senior nights, there's quite a bit of work that goes into this. When you and I have discussed a variety of different things, we've discussed policy, equity championships, we've discussed coaches and athletes, but we really haven't delved deep into the operational reality of an athletic administration. And obviously you've worked on all of those things as a coach and an administrator. I certainly remember how hard the administrators worked when I was coaching. When people hear, especially at the high school level, the athletic administration, the athletic director, they always think of scheduling and eligibility. I remember Darby Haskins, my longtime friend at Nathan Hale, told me, Juan, it's 3 B's: buses, budgets, and basketball. What actually consumes the most time that the public never sees, Mick?
Yeah, a lot of it depends on the structure of the position in the school, because we have everything from, we have some principals who are acting ADs. So obviously most of their time is going to be spent in their principal role. We have a lot of assistant principal ADs. So they're going out doing lunch duty, and they're doing teacher evaluations and all kinds of things on top of being an AD. We have other situations like in Seattle where they get a period, maybe 2 periods off. They're teaching classes and they're getting a small stipend to basically game manage. So again, it varies across the state, but there's a ton of work that no one knows. I mean, one of my jokes is people see the AD leaning against the wall eating some popcorn for 5 minutes watching a basketball game or a volleyball match, and they think, wow, that's the greatest job in the world. That is literally 5 minutes of their day. You get there typically early, and depending on your other duties, but just athletic director ones, the first thing they're doing, checking, make sure they got officials, that they got buses, making sure that coaches haven't called in or called in sick. They're checking facilities continually through the year. So all those things just for game day, making sure their workers are showing up, making sure they have, however they're taking tickets, that they have that equipment or cash ready, checking with boosters on concession stands, making sure there's enough paint to paint the soccer field. If it's senior night, there's a whole other, you're putting on a whole event. So, and that's just for one sport, and they're going to have as many as 6, 7, 8 sports going on in the facility, on the campus, and off campus. And that's just game management. That's not making sure they're eligible, not going to league meetings, not going to district meetings and everything else. So I will tell you, if you have an AD that gets it done and you're not loving him up and taking really good care of him or her, you're going to know what you're missing when you're missing it. So, there's AD job is, I don't think there's a job in the school that's more public facing and more demanding. And if you took a survey of your parents at your school, most likely would be able to point to the AD and say, yeah, that person runs sports or is something with leadership. Who's the principal? And I was a principal, but they're not nearly as visible to the community coming on campus. So challenging.
We always used to joke with Hoover Hopkins, the longtime coach at Cleveland High School, Lake Washington, of course, at Nathan Hale. And Hoover would tell me, geez, they gave me the head football coaching job. Now I'm going crazy. Now they gave me the athletic director job. We would laugh, bro. You were crazy before the football coaching job. Now this is just a more of a menace for us all. So it was we saw up close and personal how difficult that was and how much time goes into it, especially when you're coaching such an evolved sport as football was becoming 15 years ago. Let me ask you this. What are the hardest decisions that athletic administrators have to make that rarely make the headlines, but deeply affect students and schools?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of them are around health and safety type things where they're working with their coaches and trainers to make sure a student is eligible. The other ones are in the interactions with parents, trying to help navigate if parents are being high maintenance with coaches to not let that skew how a student is treated. There's a lot of the scheduling thing is really important, trying to figure out how to get your team games, not necessarily that they can win, but they can be competitive in. So all of that eventually becomes public. I mean, the real public stuff is what coach you hire. Those are always incredibly public because you're given a lot of responsibility to taking care of kids in that. So, yeah, I mean, what an AD does on a day-to-day, but I would challenge anybody to just spend a day following, and it is a labor of love.
It's interesting too, as you mentioned, so many of the programs depend upon volunteers. And I know you coaching basketball, me coaching football, I had to have volunteer coaches. Excuse me, outside of the stipend coaches that I had, you had guys coming in and they go through all of the paperwork. Yep. They go through all of those different things, and you have to depend upon them to come in and do the first aid training. And you have the volunteer coaches also in the state of Washington, and you know this, they have to maintain their clock hours. And a lot of people, you have to go to camps and clinics and record your clock hours, then send those in to the state of Washington. And it's stuff that it's, the athletic director they have to stay on top of, and it really makes the job almost 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And I always joke 13 months out of the year.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely not enough time to do every well, especially when you've layered on other jobs within the schoolhouse on the athletic director. And in today's world being so litigious, it's high stakes. But the bottom line is, it's regardless of all the time and the legal threats, it's about student safety and making sure that things are done that are in place. So some of the stuff is for show, but some of this is making sure coach is background checked, making sure that the facilities are in good repair, and make sure you got a bus. I mean, that's all student-centered decision making, and there's a lot of responsibility. And when you have as many as 20 teams at different levels going on at one time, being a general manager of 20 teams, the facility director, and the coach of coaches, on top of it, trying to develop a culture that is great for your kids to participate in. So, there's a lot going on.
The public has become so familiar with the position of athletic director at the collegiate level, and where it seems to be a little bit more prestigious job. And I know that they wrestle over the color of the courts and the cool uniform negotiations with Nike and Adidas and New Balance and so forth. But we know at the high school level, the job's a little bit different than that. And we see athletic directors sweeping up the floor with standard brooms, and we see them with wash rags cleaning off the service entry to the to buying the popcorn and putting together the items that people will have to make a little extra money on the side with their concessions. What's the most misunderstood aspect? Wait, think about that. Could you see Jed Cohen wiping down the concessions up on the upper level of Husky Stadium? I would have loved to see that. I'd love Jed Cohen. If Jed Cohen, I love you, but if this somehow gets in your box, I can't see you doing that, honey. I just couldn't see you doing it. What's the most misunderstood aspect of the WIAA's role by parents, fans, or even coaches?
Yeah, I mean, it's really, you talk about servant leadership. It is truly servant leadership. You just gave a bunch of examples. They're out the ones mowing the lawn. They're lining fields, working with their coaches, trying to get all that done. So I just probably in today's world, one of the biggest challenges, you need so many volunteers at just a regular season game. And when I started teaching and coaching, in our contract, it said we had 3 staff duties a year. So typically I tried to do lines for volleyball because I was helping coach some football. So it's usually could do that on a Tuesday, and most Thursdays freshman game was done early. So I could do lines. In the winter, I was coaching basketball. I ran graduation. Now the AD, there's a lot of those contracts don't have that extra work in there anymore, despite, salary increases. And so, they're having to find somebody to run the 24-second clock, be at the score table for wrestling, all those things, do lines at contests. Parents are helping out with more of that. And so just getting enough people to be able to run the event on very tight or minimal budgets is probably the biggest challenge they face. They want to get kids new uniforms so they feel good, look good. They want to get them, balls and tools, other equipment, and you got to find the money. So, they don't have an AD for each sport and an operations person for each sport like a lot of our big colleges. They are the Swiss Army knife.
You are listening to Mick Hoffman. He is the executive director of the Washington Interscholastic Activities Association. Now, it's a great way to describe the WIAA. They are the Swiss Army knife for high school athletics throughout the state of Washington. I am Juan Cotto. I'm joined this afternoon by Stripes Cotto, the family cat. This is Clemente's cat. Clemente went to batting practice, and she misses her dad, so she's jumping on her grandfather's back, but she wanted to say hello to everyone this afternoon on your community radio station, Rainier Avenue Radio.world. Yes, honey. And if you have any cat snacks, she would love to pick those up from you. So just a real sweet kitty cat, and she'll be playing right here until the break. I just want to make light of the Call to Conscious Black History Month Museum opening at the Columbus City Theater next month. Tony B. Does such a remarkable job with this. We had an opportunity, Daniel and I saw Tony last as many of you viewers did last Monday at the Martin Luther King celebration. We hope your Martin Luther King holiday was a day on and not a day off. Hope you got in the community and celebrated a little bit. It was a wonderful presentation, and Tony obviously put so much time into the Call to Conscious Black History Museum. And we are looking forward to seeing what he does in 2026. And if we can judge by the last couple of years, it has been spectacular. If you want to learn more about Black history in the city of Seattle, if you want to learn more about Black history in your community, please come to 4916 Rainier Avenue South and come spend some time at the headquarters for your community radio station. It's going to be open starting February 14th this year, Thursdays and Fridays from 3 to 7 p.m., and Saturdays and Sundays from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. So we just shortened down the time frame just a little bit. However, it should be an awful lot of fun, and please take your family because he does a remarkable job, and it is so self-oriented when you go in, but you learn an incredible amount about this community. Also, help us make better shows by donating at a Venmo. There's a Venmo account for Rainier Avenue Radio. You're just not going to get shows like Mick, Hoffman, and Juan Cotto for free, let me tell you. Oh, wait a minute. Of course you can. But to do that, we need to have your support, and we appreciate it so much. So there's also a thing called Shunpike. I am too much of a Luddite to know what that is. So if you want to make a donation through Shunpike, feel free to do so. But I am familiar with Venmo because I make contributions to that to my son regularly. Decision making under pressure. Sending your son Venmo money, Mick, that's decision making under pressure. How do we make high stakes decisions when information is incomplete, emotions are high, and timelines are tight? And I know you've never experienced this. So how do you make those decisions under pressure? What is the information you need to have? Who are the people that need to be involved, and how do you come up with a way of keeping the peace at such times?
Yeah, I mean, I would say, first of all, when I went through my administrative work through Washington State University, I had a professor, Dr. Gay Selby. We lost her this year. She was an incredible mentor, and she imparted two things of wisdom that have stayed with me for my 20 plus years in administration now. And she said the very first thing is people are going to put a lot of pressure on you to make a decision. They're going to want you to make it fast, and you almost always have more time than what you feel. So make sure you're aware of how much time you have, number one. And then number two was when working in schools, she said, you know, you're going to get a lot of pressure to make a decision from a teacher, a coach, a fellow administrator, what have you. But when you accept a leadership position in education, you are the last person a lot of times to do right for kids. So you have to do right for kids first and foremost. So you got to have a foundational philosophy. So for me, the last one is our foundational philosophy. The second one is pay attention because you a lot of times have more time. Not always, middle of the floor at the Tacoma Dome on a protest, decisions got to be made. So I think what you do is you get the right people there, right? People who know the situation and know the rules, number one. So you gather that information and do that. And then number two is you make a decision that is justifiable, like, something that lives to your principles and you can justify. And sometimes that's like, what is the intent of the rule? There's not a rule for everything. But there's rules usually addressing most things. And so you got to be consistent and you have to be fair, and it has to be done for students first and foremost. And, that's one of the things I've learned in my 7 years in the office is we get the opportunity to do that a lot on eligibility decisions, on, not everybody has all the information they think they do, or they think they know the rules. We have to do that on rule waiver requests. We have to do that on appeals. Our board and district directors just spent 2 days, all day Friday with district directors, all day Saturday with our board, listening to schools appeal and making some really, really tough decisions for schools and classifications that are going to impact thousands of kids. So I think that's the best way you can do is, take the time you need to make a good decision, knowing you're not going to make everybody happy, but at the end of the day, you have to follow the rules and you got to be kid-centered.
Mick, is there a difference between a right decision and a defensible decision in the world of high school athletics?
Well, the right decision has to be defensible. And so it doesn't mean you're always going to get it right. But if you're making decisions for political reasons, if you're making decisions to satisfy a certain group, even though it's not the right decision, you got to get out of the decision-making process. We have, in our case, we have a handbook, and there's interpretations of that, and there's process, and they're not always in alignment. And so you do what you think is best and proper for that situation, again, around kid-centered decisions. And it's very, very challenging with the number of them that come our way, and schools are doing the exact same thing, and parents are doing the exact same thing at home with their own children. So, it's the same basic principles.
How do you balance consistency with discretion, knowing that every situation has unique human variables to it?
Well, sometimes you have to make some decisions that people aren't going to understand because they're not privy to the information, nor should they be. And so I think you can always be consistent. It may look inconsistent to people who aren't fully informed. And so, in my case, when we make decisions, a lot of times it's a staff, meeting with staff, key staff that maybe are involved or understand it the best. And we keep our board informed. And so of all the details that we can. And outside of that, people are going to speculate when they don't get their way. They're going to find a reason why. And if they get their way, they're going to be happy and most likely move on. So I think you can be consistent, but at the same time, it may appear to be inconsistent because most parties don't have all the information.
Mick, one of the terms in modern corporate culture has become over communicating, when you have to over communicate to make sure that everybody's on the same page. And certainly when I was coaching high school football, that's where I think it started. I think it all started kind of like in high school football coaching, high school athletics, where you're having to over communicate with everyone, because sometimes kids in that age range tend to forget things, maybe tend to tell parents things. So you send home emails, you stuff things into their bags that they took home, and you're trying to excuse me, over communicate this information. When communication, what communication breakdowns cause the most friction between schools, families, and for example, governing bodies?
Yeah, I guess maybe when you're assuming people know and you haven't over communicated. Mm-hmm. So in today's world, communications, the tools we have, we're very fortunate. And so the challenge is not sending so much that it's deleted for spam. So for example, we have a tool called the 2-minute drill. What we've heard is we don't use it a lot. We use it when we need to. And so when it's out there and people hear that music or see it come across their screen, they know, hey, this is something that's kind of breaking news. I saw a great quote. I keep it tagged on my computer screen in my office. It says, information is not communication. So the other part is, just because you gave people information, maybe the information wasn't communicated to where they understand it. So you also have to have some way of checking for understanding. And it's not always possible to do that, but for critical information or mass information, it is important to see if, like in our case, does a bulk of our membership understand what we've communicated, or have we communicated in such a way that it's up for interpretation? So, I don't think you can communicate too much. You just don't want to become a spam filter catcher. So.
How do you work on rebuilding trust, Mick, when there has been a decision that may have been technically correct, but it was emotionally unpopular?
Yeah, I think you just continue to reiterate the why, and we're kind of going through that this year. We had a few chronic issues with our membership and follow through, and so the board. We worked with our board for a couple years on identifying, the most critical ones and attaching specific fines. And our board was very, very thorough with this work, very cautious with it. We already had fines and fees out there, so it wasn't new. This was just an expansion of it. And, the timing of it was such that it didn't get rolled out till August officially. So we'd been talking about reporting out on it. Hey, we're working on this. This is coming. Some people even saw some of the preliminary information back in March and June, but no one's really paying attention until it's absolutely official. And when it came out, people felt like it got sprung on them. They didn't have time to get ready. So for us, what we've spent the most of this year on that topic is explaining, reiterating the why over and over and over. This is why this was done. Ejections are continuing to go up. We've tried multiple things from expanded, increased in ejections or suspension time to education afterwards, and we weren't moving the needle. We think fines were. In the fall, we were down 50% for coaches. Winter, we're about where we were last year, so we're not seeing as much success. So we'll keep tracking it. But really the most critical piece of this is we had to tell our membership, hey, we didn't do a good job communicating this. We owned it. So we had to admit what we messed up. Again, I say a lot, hey, people make mistakes. Not every mistake is fatal. And in this case, the why of it, people are starting to come to grips with. Even our business officials around the state, we just met with them. And, the message was, hey, we've come to grips with why. We get it now. We want to know how to best implement it. Can you talk to us about best practice? So we're working together on that. So the, people none of us like being held accountable, no matter how much we say it's good for all of us. When it happens, it's harsh. When it's not communicated well, right, it amplifies that feeling. And so, we're earning back people's trust, and that typically we communicate really, really well and proactively. This one, the timing of it was a challenge for us. So we did what we thought was the best we could do. Wasn't good enough. And so we're continuing to rewind that and make it a little bit better.
Well, learning from mistakes, and a young man by the name of Tariq Woolen learned from his mistakes this weekend, and hopefully he will come back for the better for the Super Bowl. Juan, Cotto touching bases with you on WIAA Primetime with the executive director of the WIAA, the Washington Interscholastic Activities Association, Mick Hoffman, on your community radio station. I'm going to go put some food in the kitty cat's bowl, and we're going to take a 3-minute break, and we will be right back following this.
You are listening to Rainier Avenue Radio.world. Don't forget to log on www.rainieravenueradio.world.
Sediment cleanup of the lower Duwamish River has begun. The U.S. Environmental Protection Agency and the members of the Lower Duwamish Waterway Group, which includes King County, the City of Seattle, and Boeing, have begun sediment cleanup of the Lower Duwamish Waterfall Superfund site. This important environmental project will address sediment pollution and help restore the health of the Duwamish River. Starting in the waterway's upper reach, construction activities extend from the South 102nd Street Bridge down straight to the Duwamish Waterway Park. Over the next 3 years, in-water activities will occur from October to February, ending in February 2027. Visit ldwg.org to learn about the upper reach cleanup and sign up for email updates.
1, 2, get down!
What's up, big and little homies? This is Masvita Maraire, host of Seattle Sports Weekly on Rainier Avenue Radio.world, your one-stop shop for Seattle sports. We cover preps, we cover college, we cover pro, we cover it all. Huskies, Mariners, Seahawks, Garfield, South, Roosevelt, Metro, King County. This is where you want to listen to for all the sports that's happening in Seattle. Seattle Sports Weekly on Rainier Avenue Radio.world.
Women Empowerment Talk Radio, your community connection to business success. Tune in weekly to Rainier Avenue Radio.world. Listen and learn from local and national guest speakers, providing resources and knowledge for the everyday business owner. Women Empowerment Talk Radio, weekly on Rainier Avenue Radio.world.
This is a Rainier Avenue Radio message on fentanyl awareness in our communities.
Talk about awareness, drug user awareness, to talk about how to use Narcan, to do that kind of education on the street for people, to make sure that they have it available. These folks are our neighbors, they're our community members, they're our families, folks who start out for any given reason, and there are countless different reasons why people end up living outside, but it's part of the community and the culture. If they didn't start out using substances, they end up using substances. If they've stayed outside for any length of time, they will end up with chronic medical conditions. The cost that it ends up creating for the community, for people to be in and out of the emergency room.
This has been a Rainier Avenue Radio message on fentanyl in our communities.
Would you like to see when your favorite Rainier Avenue Radio show comes on? Check out our show schedule, updated weekly at rainieravenuradio.world.
Happy Tuesday. Happy Tuesday at the home of the National Football Conference champion Seattle Seahawks on your community radio station, RainierAvenueRadio.world. Thank you very much, Mick Hoffman, for being with us. I want to make sure that if there is anybody that is watching from PETA, that they understand that Stripes Cotto is the ruler of the Cotto house here. So she does run everything, and want people to know that she is one of the most taken care of queen cats in the city of Seattle. And when she bites my hand, as she did, she is ready for some food. So we took care of that, and hopefully that will tide her over. And hopefully she will stop using my hand as her potential snack. Mick Hoffman, the executive director of the Washington Interscholastic Activities Association, is here with us, as he is on the second and fourth Tuesdays of the month. And we have a live conversation about this. And obviously all these shows are, let me see, my little girl would like to challenge that statement. Oh, we have another kitty cat somewhere in this. I'm sure that Daniel Bellis's cat would challenge that. But I'm sure that Daniel's cat is also the ruler of the house. The WIAA executive director, Mick Hoffman, comes and he spends his time with us, and we have conversations about the business and the aspects of high school sports that a lot of people don't talk about. We don't sit down and we talk about the winners and the losers and all those things. We do celebrate them occasionally because that's important. We want to recognize the players and coaches that do win championships and the incredible amount of work that it takes to put on a championship. But we want to focus on the things that really impact the community, and hopefully people who are listening to this, and whether they're athletic directors or whether they are PTA members, whether they are people who are part of booster clubs, will really come to understand that this is an educational activity that is designed to give our kids experience so they can take their rightful place in society and stand up and be a part of the community someday, and hopefully with a lot of adults that help them get there, and adults that were thinking in the right mindset to make sure that it was a positive experience no matter what the scoreboard or the record said. So with all that, I will also add that you can help us better by making a donation at Venmo, our little Venmo account at Rainier Avenue Radio online, or through Shunpike. All these new technological aspects to donate money. And then, of course, I want to call out the Call to Conscious Black History Museum at the Columbia City Theater, which is our home for Rainier Avenue Radio. And it's a wonderful event that Tony has put on. I believe this is going to be the third annual. I'm sure Daniel will correct me on that. If this is the fourth, I was kind of mistaking whether it was the third or the fourth. But I do know that Tony puts a great deal of just real thought into this, and I hope that people come and experience it, because you can really learn about the community, and you can learn about Seattle's Black community, and really take some things away that will really shape the way you think about all that's going on in society right now. Mick, systems, burnout, and sustainability. And geez, who's burned out these days? Are athletic administrators, athletic directors, coaches at all experiencing burnout rates similar to coaches and teachers? And how does that impact decision quality?
Yeah, no, I think it's absolutely a factor for our athletic administrators. I heard a presentation the other day, and the person used the term that we are leading in an age of rage. And I sat there listening to that, and I said, wow, that is it. You think about our ADs for the last 5-6 years, when we finally got to start playing again in COVID, and everybody was this just let them play. We'll do whatever you want. Just let our kids play. It's so important. And then it was like, okay, we finally got the state to move on that, and masking was required. And our ADs are in some of the gyms, and they're being challenged physically about asking people to put masks on, which was what was required to be able to play at the time. And it's elevated from there. I mean, look at what's going on in the world. Look what's going on in our own country, in our own state, and put people's children in a competitive environment, and it all becomes amplified. And, just having to deal with that. And I mean, I've had some principals reach out and say, Mick, you know what? I was a high school athlete. I love sports, but honestly, I'm starting to wonder if we should keep this in schools, because I spend all day dealing with behavior issues of adults and children in the classroom and outside the classroom in the hallways during the day. I'm trying to get graduation rates up. I'm trying to help feed kids, clothe kids. I'm reporting when they're being harmed. I'm being held to this incredibly high accountability standard. And then what do I get to do after school? Go into the gym or out to a field where I used to be able to watch children compete and grow and find success and deal, show resiliency and failure. And now I'm getting screamed at by parents and kids, and it just continues what I've dealt with during the day. So is burnout a real thing? 100%. And when they're at those games supervising, they're not typically with their own kids. A lot of them are missing their own child's events for other child's events.
It's amazing.
And if there's not an appreciation or understanding for that, not everywhere, but it's definitely happening more than it ever has. So that has to change, or we're going to lose this opportunity for our kids. And people don't think it's going to happen. And I'm telling you, I've had more principals and now superintendents questioning offering sports. Seattle Public Schools is having internal, those kind of conversations are coming up when they're looking at funding options. And we all think there's no way they would do it. Well, there's a lot. We didn't think we were going to be shut down for a year and a half either with COVID. So people have to not take this for granted and have to cherish it. Differences can be dealt with. We can be heard without blowing things up and living in that age of rage. And I mean, we are losing so many good people in athletic administration and coaching that what will be left potentially may not be good for kids.
It's interesting that you bring that up. And I, as you know, I'm on several different nonprofit boards, and I go lobby down in Olympia, and I work with adults on a variety of different levels. I believe I work with adults, and Mick, I also believe I have a responsibility to act like an adult. The conversations we were having around politics, and I don't want to aim this as a partisan or at any particular group, but I will say this is that it's called television programming for a reason. I see when people sit there and they see such direct contact back and forth, that also shapes the way that people start to talk to each other in some very detrimental ways. And I cannot tell you. I personally think I'm a very, very, very nice person, and I like to make light of things, and I think I'm funny, and hopefully I bring up a positive effort and try to be humorous. But people have had some really snarky and snappy responses when you're dealing with conflict, and I can only imagine, especially in the world of coaching and dealing with kids, and also with parents. And you said it, man. I remember when I was coaching, how many times that I shifted Clemente's birthday, which is October 10th, because we had football stuff, and how many birthday parties we had to shift, and how many things we had to miss or move on another month to celebrate after because Dad wasn't here. And sometimes somebody will say something to you, and they will say it very direct, and suddenly you're saying it very direct back. And I just wonder, if we're looking at modern communication and what we're seeing in this current political activity, we're harping back and forth at each other, and it's not healthy.
No, I mean, we can disagree.
Absolutely.
We can do it civilly. I mean, like, we should be able to debate topics, but it becomes so personal and a total win or lose. The concept of compromise and for the better of the group, and I know for especially certain communities, they weren't part of the larger majority. And so we have to balance that and determine a set of norms of what's wrong and right. And then regardless whether it's a majority of people or a minority of people that are in that one, what's right is right and what's wrong is wrong, and not argue for the win or the loss, but for the betterment of people. And so it's way more complicated than we're making it sound.
Mm-hmm.
But we can't get to a compromise or a better place if we don't hear each other, right? And that's what I challenge my friends all the time. Whether it's politics or just anything. Like, do you listen to both sides of an argument? Do you listen to like major news stations that are left and right to hear both sides? Because one, it might actually support your decision by hearing the other side even more, or it might bring you more to a moderate position on something. If nothing else, you're going to be better educated, and then we can have discussions about it, and then the people we've entrusted to make decisions. And if we don't like their decisions, we get involved in the process to get different decision makers. It's all there. But when our leaders are using hostile tactics of communication on a regular basis, and you can hear either side use similar language in different ways, but we definitely have some that are more extreme than others. Our kids hear that, our parents hear that, and then we are mixing in the love of our kids and competition in that, and it's a very volatile. So it's tough in our schools. It's tough for parents to support their kids in a way that can be heard. And so I think we have to take the volume down, allow others to speak, take the time to listen and communicate, and then see where it goes from there. And it's going to take some patience. I'm just hoping it doesn't take us losing things we really love, like the opportunity to compete in schools, to get there.
Mick, what parts of the system are currently over-reliant on a few experienced people holding it all together?
I'd say first and foremost, it's our officials.
Mm-hmm.
Todd and WIAA have done a good job recruiting. Spring sports were still down. We haven't recovered from 2 lost seasons of COVID, but other ones were starting to get good numbers. But it's a core group of officials in most areas that are doing most of those games, especially the high stakes games. And the average age is 55 or older, right? That's our range, my friend. And going out running, 10 games in a week, there's only so many days that works before one of the wheels go flat. So I think that's probably the biggest one. Also within our AD rank, I know that's the topic you chose this week, and I appreciate that, because you look around our leagues around the state. When I started 7 years ago, we had a lot of leagues that out of their 10 teams, say 7 of them were veteran ADs and could help with a lot of the leadership. Now we're down to 1 or 2 in those, and 7 or 8 that are relatively new. And they're the ones making critical decisions for leagues and tournaments. They're the ones who, on top of their day job we've already talked about, when the postseason basketball starting, I will tell you, it's my favorite time of the year, bar none. I'm a old basketball coach. I'm biased. But those tournaments that they're now these extended games that go on for 2 or 3 weeks, ADs are running those and not getting paid. Like they're just doing that as part of their work with the leagues. And as we get new people in there, they're like, wait, we don't get paid for that? What are you talking about? And so, the willingness to volunteer to host when your school's not playing. So officials and ADs are our most critical areas right now.
Mick Hoffman here on your community radio station, Rainier Avenue Radio.world. He is the executive director of the Washington Interscholastic Activities Association. And we are talking about administration, the whole job, the focus job, the job. We're talking about the surface below the tip of the iceberg. You see the tip, but you don't see what goes on underneath. We're really dealing with some of the issues that go on underneath and really talking about those. Hey, if you want to help us, there's a little tag on the upper, I believe that's the upper left-hand corner of your set. That's our Venmo app. There's a Shunpike app. Please feel free. Every dollar helps. Rainier Avenue Radio.world present this great information and the breadth. And also, as far as we can expand it, we have people who literally listen to this all over the country. And we want to make our shows better and support all of those who do that. Call the Conscious Black History Month Museum. It's going to be opening at the Columbia City Theater, our headquarters for Rainier Avenue Radio, starting February 14th, Thursdays and Fridays, 3 to 7. And then on Saturdays and Sundays, from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. Tony B put so much work into this, collects stuff from all over the community. It is a real experience, and we hope you will take your time to take your family, take your children to go down and learn a little bit about the greater Seattle area community. Mick, if one key administrator steps away unexpectedly, where does the system feel it first?
I think in their direct day-to-day responsibilities, because a lot of them have their own systems to make sure. So it really depends on what all they're responsible for. But I would say their coaches can keep a team moving for a little bit, especially if the season's set up. I think it really comes in that following season that maybe isn't set up, where coaches and students just don't have all their expectations in place that they need for a successful season. So
I want to bring up one name that you mentioned, Todd Stordahl. I cannot believe it was, God, am I getting that old? It was 18 years ago. I worked with Todd Stordahl on the blue flags for prostate cancer research.
Oh, yeah.
That was 2008, 2000, somewhere in there. I cannot believe, geez, and we won national awards. If I have the late Kid Herod was the one that really was excited about what Todd was able to do, and we had officials who were wearing these blue sleeves. We had these cool blue sleeves for the officials, and the Pac-10 heard wind about it. And the Pac-10 referees wore the blue arm sleeves.
Oh, cool!
Jersey. It was such a cool thing, and that was to all the officials. And more importantly, in Hawaii, Mick, we get a phone call from an official that he said, something, I need to go see my doctor. He went to go see his doctor, had his prostate exam, and the official had prostate cancer. And
wow.
We were able to do radiation for him and did get him taken care of, which was one of the most unbelievable parts of that whole story. But I think about Todd and all that he's been through. He's still in that job. Todd is still doing it, and that's remarkable. And please, when you see him, please tell him a tip of the hat to that young man. Future-facing administration. What skills will the next generation, and hearing what you said about some of these budget conversations, hopefully we will need a next generation of athletic administrators. What skills will the next generation of athletic administrators need that weren't essential 20 years ago?
I think one is technology is really embedded in their work. So just staying current and having the aptitude to do that. I think the other one is, with so much screen time, we talk about our interpersonal skills. I think the ADs of the future are going to need extremely strong interpersonal communication skills from the different groups that they work with. And, that's a skill set that can be developed. And there's not a lot of opportunity in today's world. So I would say those are probably two of the key ones. Is one, be able to interact and adapt to new technology. And then number two, just be able to deal with people. And one, I want to tell a story here before we get done. When you
Mhm.
mentioned Hawaii, there's a lady who worked at the Hawaii Athletic Association. Her name's Natalie, one of the kindest, most caring, hardworking ladies. And we found out she's one of the toughest ones. She went to a public school there as an athletic director 2 years ago. And you can just Google Hawaii AD punched. And you will see one of the most horrific videos. They had a preseason basketball game at her school. It was pretty heated. So she walked the officials out to the parking lot, and a security camera catches this. There's a gentleman out there, a parent, 300+ pound man with his wife and toddler. And he's out there waiting because he knows where the officials are leaving. And they're walking out. She tells the officials to keep walking as they come around the corner. She walks over to talk to the man. Now, I know Natalie personally, so I know she's not cussing him. She's not threatening. She's probably asking what he's doing, trying to reason with him. He rears back and punches her in the face. She goes flying, literally. You watch this video through the air, lands on her back. She is knocked out cold, unconscious for over 10 minutes. The guy is a corrections officer in Hawaii who did this. So you're not this is a guy who's been entrusted to keep the peace in a correctional facility. So they've gone to court, they've done all that. They did a great job supporting Natalie. There's 100+ people lining up the hallways when he and her walked into court. But those are the kinds of things that, you know, somebody might say, you and I, we might posture, we might use some words that maybe we shouldn't in that situation that could antagonize possibly. Here is a young lady who is incredible at talking people down, and they didn't care for a preseason basketball game outcome. And that's the world our ADs are living in right now. And those are the kind of situations that will cause us to lose this. And if you know anything about youth sports, that's much more common in that arena because there's not a governing agency. And the NCAA right now is pro sports without a Roger Goodell and an NFL and an owners group controlling it. And we can see the chaos with that. And I can only imagine what will happen with youth sports if people don't start working together for the best of children and not for their own personal wants and needs.
You know, it's interesting you bring up those types of things, and we can sit back and say, oh, it's an isolated incident. But you mentioned the Hawaii AD, Aqib Talib and his brother, and I'm not sure how that turned out, but his brother, they were coaching a football game, and Aqib Talib, all-pro defensive back for the New England Patriots, and I believe for the Denver Broncos, and his brother and he were coaching a game, and they got intense, and Mr. Talib's brother shot the opposing coach with a gun, and I just sit back and we're hearing more and more stories about it. When I was at the 2011, Seattle Seahawks sent me as their ambassador to the NFL High School Coaches Association. Was Mike Flood and the team over there really did a great job, and I learned so much at that program in Canton, Ohio. And the NFL will always be one of my favorite organizations. That was a couple of months after Sarah and we went through an unfortunate tragedy of losing our son, and the NFL took care of us so well and made a beautiful contribution to a couple of charities that we asked them to. I say that because as I was speaking to the coaches at the event, especially the coaches from Florida, would you care to guess what the biggest problem in Florida youth football was?
Typically it's always parents, so I'm guessing, but I have no idea. Hopefully it wasn't that.
Mick, it was parents and supporters betting on the games.
Oh wow.
And you can imagine if a kid missed a pass or he fumbled the football on the goal line, what type of scrutiny he came under walking home. And the teams that lost some of those games, the punishment that was waiting for them on Monday at the Monday practices. And we're sitting here like we're talking 9, 10, and 11-year-old kids. Wow. Where are we losing some of this?
Yeah, I don't know. Everybody, it's all about everybody themselves. I would just reiterate, research consistently has shown for decades the number one reason kids play is for fun. So if we're not doing something that makes it more fun for kids, right? So fairness, equates to fun. If we're not doing things that make it more fun, we shouldn't be doing it. So I don't know how betting on the game makes that more fun for kids. That's more fun for the adults, right? You got plenty of other opportunities to do that. Yelling at the official or yelling at a kid, even a kid on the other team, that's not fun for a kid. So I guess maybe how do we get back to it? We just remember why kids want to do this. They want to do it because it's fun. They don't want all that extra. They put enough pressure on themselves. So if you're able to have your kids play, love them up, coach them up, but make sure that it never goes away from the goal of being fun.
Mick, 2 questions I have for you before we close it off. If you could redesign one part of this whole system from scratch to better serve students, what would it be?
Well, that's a great question. I would say a way we could classify our schools around more competitive equity, so we could get away from an all school classification and have it sport by sport, so we can move teams around and we get rid of the running clocks.
Mick, who do you think is going to win the Super Bowl? The Seattle Seahawks or the New England Patriots?
Hey, in 2 weeks we're celebrating a Super Bowl in Seattle.
I always appreciate the passion you bring, and just listening to you today, we are extremely fortunate to have you as our executive director of this activities association, which is supposed to bring such good education to our communities, good education for our children in these communities. And just really, really admire how forward-thinking you are, how passionate you are, and the fact that so many kids are benefiting from the services you provide. So thank you for spending your Tuesdays with us. We appreciate it. And I look forward to seeing you in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, thank you, sir. You enjoy the Super Bowl. Thanks, Daniel.
Mick Hoffman on your radio station, Rainier Avenue Radio.world. Thank you.